Do, 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 do. Hello everybody, welcome to this week's live stream. I'm David Jones. If you haven't attended one of these before, I normally do them every Friday. I haven't been here for the last couple of weeks because it's that time of year. And I'm sure some of you have been away as well. And what we do is we have a catch up with what's been going on in the major markets. So indices, gold, silver, oil, natural gas, some of the FX markets. We'll have a look at Bitcoin, all of that. So we'll look at those. And then if there's any markets you want looking at, if you put them in the chat, we'll take a look at those as well. It's been an interesting week. I mean, it's been an interesting month, isn't it? You know, this is the S&P. With that massive sell-off at the beginning of August. The market made a low the 5th of August. When was that? So 2 weeks ago, last Monday. So 3 weeks of Monday coming. We had a bit of chop. But then over the last couple of weeks, until yesterday, we have seen what has been a fairly incredible recovery. And one of the things I watch, and one of the things that's been very noticeable, until yesterday, both the S&P and the Nasdaq over the last couple of weeks had not taken out the lows of the previous day. So it's been quite a good market for day trading. You know, one of my setups is to look at previous days' highs and lows, and it hasn't taken it out until yesterday. So I do wonder. I am long the Nasdaq at the moment, but I do wonder, is it perhaps losing a bit of momentum, which wouldn't be surprising. You know, if you let's look at the Nasdaq. How far has the Nasdaq come? That low on the Monday, the 5th of August, was 17.3, let's call it, and we're 2,300 points higher, which is what, about 15% higher, something like that. But I think it's interesting. You know, we'd had this great run up, and then yesterday we did see these markets under some pressure for the first time for a couple of weeks, as I say. And the Nasdaq did trade down to where it was on Monday of this week. So I thought that was interesting. But I'd still be a buyer. I think it makes for an interesting afternoon, an interesting finish to the week to see what happens. So for me on the Nasdaq, going into this afternoon, 19,450, I think is an interesting level. And on the S&P, 55.60. Or thereabouts. Let's see what happens. I did a video earlier this week, slightly different to my usual videos, because I get bored of doing the usual videos, so I don't do them very often. So I thought I'll do a video on my own trades, on trades I've got running. So if you haven't seen that, go and watch that from Wednesday. I came out of the T-bond trade. These are the trades I've got running. These are all actual trades. So pound against the dollar has been a good trade for me. Still in that. Natural gas, I went short natural gas on the 20th, 3 days ago. I've been long platinum for a bit. I bought T-bonds, bought back into T-bonds yesterday. My one loser at the moment is crude oil. I went short crude oil today. Interesting to see how that one works out. I did get stopped out being long earlier in the week. But I'm going to do more of these videos of updates on trades I'm running. I'll probably do 3 to 5 medium-term trades a week and perhaps 3 day trades on indices during the week. So I will definitely try and do more of those as time goes on. So if you haven't watched that video, go and watch that and tell me what you think, and if there's anything else you want to see in that. So no, it's been a good week overall for trading. But let's get some of the housekeeping out of the way, then we'll get into it. This presentation is only for educational purposes. It does not contain and should not be construed as containing investment advice or an investment recommendation or an offer of or solicitation for a transaction in any financial instrument. David Jones accepts no responsibility for any use that may be made of these comments and for any consequences that result. You should consider whether you understand how spread bets, CFDs, futures, foreign exchange work, and whether you can afford to take the high risk of losing your money. Trading is risky. Okay. Oh, I did find out, and this does happen now and again. There's somebody, I think, who's claiming to be me on Telegram. Somebody sent me a screenshot this week. There's not much I can do about this sort of stuff, but it's not me. You know, if there's somebody that looks a bit dodgy doing stuff like that, it's not me. I'm on Twitter, I'm on YouTube, obviously, for this. I do run a WhatsApp group, and that's it. So I'm not running some get-rich-quick scheme. So if you hear from somebody saying that they're me, it probably isn't me. But any questions, drop me an email to check. But yeah, somebody did flag that up this week, and it's not me. Right, let's have a look. What's the major stuff for next week? It's a busy week next week from an inflation point of view. I mean, we had those the minutes from the Fed meeting, didn't we, this week? But next week, it's a bank holiday in the UK on Monday. Is it a bank holiday in Europe? Perhaps. Who knows? I don't care. I live in the UK, so I won't be here Monday. So Monday is a holiday, at least here. But then Wednesday, we have Australian inflation. Thursday, US GDP. So how well or how not well is the US economy doing? And Friday is quite a big one. We've got Japanese inflation, so Japanese consumer price inflation, consumer price index, EU inflation, and also US personal consumer expenditure, which I think is the Federal Reserve, the US central bank's preferred indicator for consumer inflation. So Friday could be an interesting day. So as usual, I'll be back for yes, there were actually 3 David Joneses in my year at school. So there is more than one David Jones, yeah, but there were 3 of us at school in the same year. Anyway, I digress. It's a long time ago. So Friday's a big day for inflation. So we'll be back. I'll be back at 2:30 next Friday, and we'll take a look. We'll take a look at what's going on after those numbers. But lots to look at. Really, I think it's going to be an interesting finish to the week, given we had a bit more volatility yesterday. I'll talk about some of the other stuff I do afterwards. But for now, let's jump into the charts. Let's start off with stock markets. So I am long the Nasdaq at the moment from a couple of days ago. It's been a good bounce. By the time I actually pulled my finger out and decided I should be buying, I started buying the Nasdaq from a short-term trading point of view Wednesday, Thursday last week. So it's been all right. It's interesting up here, though. This is the S&P. So if you thought that actually the bull market in stocks was over, this is a great place to go short. We have the old all-time high for the S&P around about 56.70. Here we are at 56.04. So if you thought that the US stock market was heading down for, I don't know, let's say the rest of the year, the next couple of months, it's a great short up here. You know, if I was going short, I'd be stops above 57. Let's say stops at 57, short at 56, bish bash bosh, 100-point risk. If it goes back to just the lows for August, there's 500 points potential profit in that trade. So it is interesting up here. Like I say, from my point of view, I'm still a buyer of the dip on the S&P or the Nasdaq. But interesting to see, do we get all-time highs next week again, or do these markets turn down? So yeah, interesting to see where it ends today, and you know, further out what happens next week. But for me at the moment, I am still a buyer of the dip. The big trend is still up. That's the S&P trend since October 2022. So nearly 2 years now. How time flies. But let's see what happens next week. So I'll be watching those old highs this afternoon. I got the Nasdaq trade anyway, so I won't do any more trades on indices. But this afternoon, if it weakens back to yesterday's low, do we see the buyers come back in? I mean, it has been quite, you know, this is 10-minute charts, 10-minute candles, and you can see, you know, how these markets have traded. This is 2 weeks ago. On the Monday, it goes up again. On the Tuesday, it goes up, doesn't threaten the previous low. Wednesday doesn't threaten the previous low, the next Thursday. And so it goes on. We never see these previous lows threatened until yesterday, when we did take out those lows. So let's see. Let's see what happens. But for now, I'm quite comfortable being long. If that level gets broken this afternoon, if it breaks, it would be new lows for the week. It would be. If we saw these markets make new lows for the week this afternoon, then that's interesting. let's see what happens. But for now, trend is still up for me. The Russell, the smaller cap US index. What was interesting in this, I don't think I've done the live stream since we had all that craziness beginning of August, but the Russell sold off but held above the June lows. You know, the smaller cap index that has been pretty sideways for some time. I don't know what I do here. It's a bit sort of in the middle of the range, isn't it? Interesting if we get a dip there. So not too much exciting for me there at the moment. FTSE, again, the FTSE, I think I put it in the WhatsApp group this week that if there was a market that perhaps you wanted to go short of, perhaps this was one. We have those old highs on the FTSE at 8,400 from the beginning of August, and it has stalled since Monday. Got as high as 83.72 on Monday, and has been a bit sideways all week. But again, you know, the trend since when's that, COVID? The trend is still up, and the trend is still up since October last year. So there you go. There's that. What else have we got? The DAX. I mean, the DAX has had a good run. The DAX has made new highs again today. Another one that never really threatens the low of the day before, all the way up, and has carried on higher. So the DAX, this afternoon at least, looks relatively slightly stronger than the US indices. So let's see what happens there. All-time highs for the DAX, less than 100 points below 19,000. So again, interesting to see what happens next week on those. Yeah, that's it. Japan. I mean, the Nikkei, what a move that was on the Nikkei. I mean, that went from 42.5 to 30 and a bit, 3,400. Massive swing in the Nikkei. The Nikkei's bounced back. You know, again, it was been a great opportunity to buy down here. Coming back to those old lows, it's quite interesting. Those old lows from October 2023 held on that, so that was interesting, I think, but not really a trade for me in there. What has been interesting, I think, and it feeds into one of my trades, this dollar index. I do this newsletter that goes out every week, normally, when I write it, if I can remember to write it. And I mentioned the dollar index in the latest newsletter. And I wondered, you know, what was going to happen this week, because we come back down to these big levels. You know, the low for the year for the dollar index, the 2nd of Jan, was at 101.34. It has gone through that this week on Wednesday, but this low from late December has held 101.22. So it's interesting, you know, it's been pretty sideways, as you can see, for the last 18 months, but we're down at the lower end of the range. So is this where we see sentiment towards the US dollar start to turn around again? I don't know, but interesting one to watch down here. I think that's an interesting market to watch next week. T-bonds, I'm in the trade on T-bonds at the moment. That's why there's so many lines drawn on there. So I bought these here, I think, on the way up. Came out of it yesterday morning, and I bought back in yesterday evening. US Treasuries, you know, bond markets. You have some great trends in bond markets, but I've been trading this trend here. We'll see how that works out. Let's take a look at gold. I mean, gold has had all-time highs this week on Tuesday. So I would absolutely buy the dip on golds. You know, that's the shorter term trend. Let's tidy this up. Let's just get some of this stuff off. You know, we have had various breakouts on gold this year. We had a breakout there in May that it did drop back for quite a while. A breakout there again in July, that dropped back. This breakout has broken out. Are we going to see it pull back? I don't know. But I would buy the dip on gold. You know, looking into next week, you know, if we picked up on the latest bit of the trend for gold, what does it look like? It looks something like that ish. So I think that's quite interesting. And if I was a buyer, I'd have my stop at least below 2,450. But interesting to see how that fares. Of course, if we do see the US dollar making a big comeback, it does. Then that is going to put pressure on the price of gold, you know. But so far, it's doing okay, you know. Even though it's dropped back a bit this week. Let's see what happens. Silver's always a bit of a funny one, I find. But you know, again, I'd probably buy the dip on silver. You know, we've got this good trend in silver going up since for the last couple of weeks or so. So another interesting one to watch next week. Perhaps not that obvious there for me, but and then if you look at some of the currencies, I'm in the pound against the dollar trade. I mentioned that on the video earlier this week. It's my biggest winner at the moment. And the pound, even today actually, has just about nudged to its best levels since April 22. So it's actually a 2-year plus high in the pound. So I bought yesterday. Perhaps it's getting a little bit overextended up here. If we look at the RSI, I've been in one trade since a week last Wednesday. I bought it again yesterday. It is getting perhaps a bit overheated up here, so let's see what happens. But there has been, that's been a great trend in the pound. I mentioned in the video earlier in the week, I was short here coming into it, got stopped out here and bought back in. So I'm still in that trade from there. And I bought again last night down here somewhere. So let's see what happens. So obviously a lot does hinge on what happens with the US dollar. And the price of oil and natural gas. It's been a bit. If you look at the dailies on oil, it is pretty sideways for the year so far. And there's an argument. Again, I put it in the WhatsApp group I run this morning. There's an argument to be a buyer or a seller. You could take the view it's at the bottom of the range. The lows from February were down around 71.40. This week it's traded as low as 72.70. So absolutely there's an argument to be a buyer because we're at the bottom of the range. Is it going to rotate its way back up? But also, given the trend, there's an argument to be a seller. Given the trend, the shorter term trend over the last week and a half. So that's the trade I did. I went short today about here, 75. So it's about 50 cents against me at the moment. So I went short today. Just wondering, are we going to get another retest next week of these lows? Let's see. Let's see what happens with that one. But perhaps not the most exciting market from a daily, bigger picture point of view, but a bit more exciting, I think, from the short-term point of view. And natural gas, the market I hate, and I'm in profit on natural gas. So the trade is up a couple of £100 so far on natural gas. I went short natural gas earlier this week. It was an interesting one, I think. We had this downtrend on natural gas. This is on the hourlies. Had the downtrend. The market breaks out. But I thought, but when markets break out, I'm still willing to give the main trend a second chance. So I went short earlier the week, and it's been a bit chopper armor, but it has fallen off since then. So, it's a crazy market, natural gas, isn't it? So we'll see. We'll see how that trade works out. But for now, it's working out okay so far. So, a big level down here from earlier in the year, around about $1.55 on natural gas. So if it fell further again, perhaps it's a buy down there. But for now, I just thought, the big trend is down. I don't believe this breakout. I'll go short. I'll see how it turns out. So let's see what happens with that one. If we take a look at some other markets, what else do we look at? Platinum. I've been long platinum for a couple of weeks. It's done a bit, and then it's not done much. I've been long platinum because the trend is up. The trend has been up since November. So I bought that back here somewhere, I think. Let's see. That's a bit of a slow burner trade, I think, platinum. So we'll see. We'll see how that one works out. Bitcoin, pretty boring, I think, Bitcoin. The big trend is still up on Bitcoin from November 22. So I buy the dip, but we've not had much action, really, in the last 5 months or so for Bitcoin. So nothing too exciting there. And that's about it, really. I think coffee break out this week. Coffee Robusta. For fans of the agricultural commodities, Coffee Robusta broke out. We've not had much follow through really since that. So not too exciting so far on that. Some of the more active markets, or the more active markets earlier in the year, like cocoa, they're not doing much. I mean, we had a fantastic run on cocoa at the beginning of the year. I mean, it tripled in price, cocoa, and that's gone a bit sideways since then. And orange juice, what's that doing? Oh, that's having a little go again, isn't it? So orange juice is for fans of those sort of markets. Well, there you go. Orange juice up here. What do you think? Is it going to break out or is it going to sell off again? So if you thought the orange juice was too expensive, it's perhaps an interesting short up here. I mean, it's not one I would do really because the trend is still up. But interesting up at this sort of 490, 500 level on orange juice. What happens up here? So yeah, the only other thing I think of that was interesting I didn't do was copper this week. I was thinking about buying copper yesterday, but I didn't. What's it done? Not much. I mean, copper's an interesting one because I think this is an all-time high in May. So it broke out, but then it absolutely, it dropped about 20%. So the question on copper, I would say, is it still in a correction from the highs like that? In which case, we should go short. But if we look in the shorter term time frame, let's just take that off for now. The trend is still up. So interesting one. I think copper, we've got conflicting trends at the moment. And the approach is that the bigger trend always wins out. But let's see, that might be an interesting market to watch next week. So really, in summary, the stuff I think is interesting, stock market indices, because we've had this pretty strong recovery over the last 2.5 weeks. Do we see yesterday's lows hold in these markets? So that's interesting. Dollar index is interesting because we're near to these big levels. Are we seeing it turn around? Is it going to have a little bit of a plunge? Who knows? And gold, because it's coming off the all-time highs. So that's it. That's all that stuff done. So plenty to watch next week and see where everything finishes today. If there's any markets you want looking at, if you put it in the chat, just a quick promo from me. I run a WhatsApp group. I run it for 18 months now. It gives you a daily update from me in the morning, what markets I'm looking at. Interesting markets to watch during the day. Normally about 4 to 8 markets I think are interesting to watch during the day. What did I do this morning? Can't even remember. Can never remember what I did. So markets I'm watching. So this morning, US indices obviously was the big one. DAX breaking higher. Crude oil because I'm short. And pound against the dollar because it's making new 2-year highs. Markets I'm watching. Trades I'm running. So I'll talk about the trades I'm running, where my stops are, stuff like that, and any Q&A. And I do an update in the afternoon on US day trading. So if you want to try it, you can try it for a month. If you use the code YouTube, it's 50. You get 20% off, 50% off. Don't be ridiculous. You get 20% off if you use the code YouTube. The link to where to sign up is in the description. I did some analysis on the WhatsApp group this week, and people, you can try it out for a month, and if you hate it, you can go. But the vast majority of people have been in there for almost 6 months, and there are some people who've been in there for even longer. So I'm glad they like it. I hope they find it useful. I think it's good value. If you go to my website, the link's down below, davidjonestrading.co.uk, and you can sign up for the WhatsApp group, and you can use the code YouTube to get a discount and try it for a month. And if you hate it, you've saved money on it, but you won't hate it. That's what it looks like typically. That's what an update looks like. That's it. And I run a trading course. It's got 5-star Trustpilot reviews. There's a newsletter. If you go to the website, if you're not on the newsletter list, if you go on the website, it's on the homepage. The newsletter's free. So I send that out every week, and it's all on the website and blah, blah, blah. And if you want to find out who I trade with, last promo, go there. bit.ly/DavidTrade. And the reason I trade with these guys is tight spreads. So I do all my day trading with these guys. Tight spreads. You can trade small. You don't need a 10 grand account to trade. So if you've got stuff you want to try out, you can trade small and all of that. So all of these links should be in the description to this video. Right, let's take a look. How's my little trades doing? Oil is still a bit under pressure. Okay, let's see. Right, what are we going to look at? Let's have a quick look at these US markets, see what's going on. Is there anything exciting going on? No, not yet. Right, let's have a look at what you want to look at. Plug Power. Plug Power. So I'm guessing that's a stock, Plug Power Inc. There we go. I think we've looked at these before, haven't we? Because I've drawn some lines on it. I mean, for me, the big trend is down. I think we looked at these quite recently, didn't we? They were $75 in January of 2021, and here we are at 2. So for me, I would look to sell a rally. I'd have no interest in buying a stock like that because it's so bombed out. I mean, it does appeal. Obviously, you can absolutely see why stocks like this appeal because it was $75 4 years ago and it's $2 today. Isn't that a bargain? Perhaps, but it might be 20 cents in 2 months, 2 years, whatever. So for me, I'm not a fan of stocks that do that. You know, so I'd rather sell a rally if it rallied up to, I don't know, $3.50, but I don't really trade these small stocks. I suppose it's one of those, if you're really convinced it's a buy it and forget about it stock, yeah. But for me, no, the trend is down, so it's not very attractive. Right, HEI, Heiko Corporation. That looks good, doesn't it? That is a good trend. What's that? Electronic technology, aerospace and defence. So for me, that's much more up my Strasser when it comes to stocks to trade. So we've had a great uptrend since October 23. So as usual, I'd buy the dip. Dodgy price in there by the looks of it. I'd buy the dip. The risk is the dip doesn't come. You know, it looks like it's trading pretty much at all-time highs at the moment. If I was a buyer, I would probably want my stop the other side of that 218 level at the moment. So I'd rather buy a dip. But like I say, the risk is we don't get the dip. But no, great trend on that one. PLTR, is that Palantir, or however you say it? Palantir. Yeah, God, that's been volatile, hasn't it? I mean, it is clearly still recovering after, you know, coming off those highs in the Feb 21. Again, the problem I have is the volatility one, isn't it? Where you've got such big swings, where does your stop go on something like that? I mean, I would probably want it the other side of 21, which is $11 away from where it is now. It's 30% plus stop loss, but it was only there in August, you know, so where would your stop go? Perhaps a more aggressive stop is halfway between those levels. So maybe at like 26 is perhaps one idea. So I would be a buyer, but it's another one. Do I wait for weakness, or do I just jump in and try and ride it a bit higher? Someone's saying Warren Buffett bought Heiko. Thanks for that. That was that one we just looked at, wasn't it, Heiko? That one there. And KOLD. Pro, is that one? Pro shares, ultra short, Bloomberg, natural gas. I never know how these ultra short things move. They move. It's not a leveraged one, is it? I don't know. I don't think so. It moves. I'm guessing it moves inverse to natural gas, doesn't it? So if natural gas goes down, this goes up. Is that correct? I don't know. I'm not sure. It looks a bit odd to me, so I don't know. I never trade these ETFs based on an underlying market. I know, apart from the S&P, that is. But I just trade the underlying market. So yeah, I'm a bit more on the fence on that one. I suppose going short with a stop above 88.5. So I'm guessing the highs for the year on this from Feb are the lows for the year on natural gas. Let me just check that out. Yes. So it's an ultra short. So it is. It's a way of going short. Popular with Americans because they're not allowed. It's not as easy for Americans to trade. Well, they can't trade CFDs and spread betting. So it's not as easy, as far as I know, for your American retail investor to go short markets the same way we can in the more advanced financial world, because we haven't been banned from those products. That's why options are so popular in America, because it's a way of getting leverage and going in any direction, whereas in the rest of the world, or most of the rest of the world, we can trade CFDs and stuff like that. So so for me, maybe it's got a bit further to run and then see what happens up here, which ties in with that low on natural gas. That's that. Nvidia should share huge earnings August 28th. Huge earnings. Is it priced in though? I haven't looked at those for a while. I mean, obviously they've bounced back, haven't they, with the old doodah, the bounce back we've seen in broader stock markets. Again, I wouldn't go short because the trend on Nvidia, is absolutely up, absolute star performing stock. this year. But stocks don't stay star performers forever, do we? But the trend is up, so I'd rather buy the dip. But it's a long way away from where I'd want my stop. If you were going to be the contrarian and saying, well, do you know what? All of the NVIDIA excitement is priced into the stock. You know, we last saw an all-time high on NVIDIA in June. And if you thought NVIDIA is going to disappoint the market, then it's a good level to sell short. You know, with stops above 140. I mean, from a risk-reward point of view, it makes sense. From a trend point of view, a bigger trend point of view, not so much. But interesting up here. What happens? And when did you say the results were out? So did you say the 28th of August? So that's next week, isn't it? Wednesday? Is it next week? That'd be interesting to see what happens. Micron Technologies, moo. I was in these. I got stopped out of these on the craziness. I don't know. What do you think? I mean, they've come. I mean, they nearly halved, didn't they? From the June highs at 157 down to 84. I don't know what I do with that one at the moment. I don't know. If I was a buyer, I would put my stop loss the other side of 79, probably. If I was going short, I don't know. The other side of 110. I think that's a tricky one. That's one of those ones I think where I look at it and think, I don't know, I'll go and look at something else. So yeah, I'm not sure on that one. Personally, I'd have to wait and see how it all worked out. Alibaba. Now Alibaba, let's have a look at those. What would you do? And it's been a funny old picture, Alibaba, because we did have that downtrend that had been in place for a while, from 2020 through to 2022, broke out, and then never really managed to get much of a move on. You know, it's all been a bit sideways, and here we are. So I think, again, there are for me, there are potentially two trades here. If I thought we're going to see a long-term recovery for Alibaba, I'd be a buyer, obviously. And I'd put my stop the other side of 66. If I thought, we're just going to see this continued sideways nonsense, I'd be thinking about selling short with a stop at above 90 or something like that. So it's another one, you know, that there was a breakout and it looked absolutely, if I was looking at it back then, I'd have thought, maybe we're going to see this recovery. And that was early 23. And it just hasn't happened, has it? So it's another one of those for me. I don't know. You know, I think it depends on your time horizon. It just looks a little bit... I mean, there are big swings. It's a 50% swing this year, 50% range this year. It just looks a little bit sideways from a bigger picture point of view. So I think it's a tricky one. Tricky one to call, Alibaba. What else are we looking at? Airbnb. I was in this one. I don't think... am I still in it? No, I'm not still in it. I'm still in it more. This was another one. It was having a good recovery, and it's all changed. You know, so that's gone. That trend's gone. So I don't know. So I think for me, we don't really have a trend at the moment. I think an aggressive trade is to be a buyer with a stop under the recent low. So a stop under 110. That's an aggressive trade. But it's another one that's been, you know, really hard hit in the last month or so. So I don't know on that, on Airbnb. So yeah, I'd probably rather buy it than sell it and take the view this move has been overdone. But it's all been a little bit quiet over the last couple of months, even though wider markets have been trending higher, you know. So yeah, not too much in there for me. What else have we got? Reddit. Hang on, I've lost the thing. Reddit stocks. YOLO. Oh, that's something different, isn't it? Reddit. Hang on, Reddit the stock. That had been doing well when it first came out, hadn't it? But it only came to the market back here in March. What do you think? I suppose I'd buy it. I mean, we don't have that much data to go on, do we? I take the view. Look, we are coming off. It did make a new high since flotation in early July. If I was a buyer, now, I'd have a stop the other side of 49. That would be the trade for me on Reddit if I had to trade it. What does it look like on the hourlies? So that would be. So I'd take the view. Okay, is this slide over? And are we going to see it try and claw back some of those losses it made during August? So that's what I would do on that one. London wheat. London wheat. Is it Wheat UK? Oh, I never know what these things are called. Is it Wheat UK? Because there is always the different flavours of wheat, isn't there? Let's have a look at some of these. Okay, what does US wheat looks like? US wheat is trading around 5. What does London wheat look like? And that's the same though, isn't it? So that looks like the US flavour. 528. I don't know. Should we go with this? They all seem to be coming up with the same price, so I don't know which wheat is which. If I type in London. Oh, UK. Is that UK? Oh, I don't know. Let's have a look. UK feed wheat futures. Hang on, Kevin. What did you say? You said back to March 24 and September 21 levels. I don't think the other wheat looks vastly different, actually. So let me go back to that. There we go. I mean, that's the wheat. That's the US wheat. And that looks pretty weak to me. I did wonder if this was trying to stage a recovery. I've been short wheat since last July, and I came out of it here, I think, in April, eventually. And it rallied, and it's just drifting back down again, isn't it? So for me, I would be, it's around 178. I can't bring it up for some reason. So we'll have to skip that one. But to me, it looks weak. Where's, let's have one more try. Is that that must be the one, around 178. Okay, let's look at that. So that's UK wheat. I mean, what would you do? If we walk through some of what it's done. So, let me just put that on there. So if I was looking at that, then. So if we were looking at this in April, we got downtrend, 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 new low. So I'd be looking to sell a rally. So the market gaps up for some reason. And I would have gone short there, thinking that's a false breakout. That would have done all right. So I would still be short. And I think, so the question is, for me, I think like you say, what happens down at these levels? So I would not be a buyer of that. We do have, like I think you mentioned that, didn't you? The big historical level going back to July 21. So if you wanted to buy it, it's getting close, but I'd rather it stopped going down first. And if I was a buyer, I would have my stop loss the other side of 158 at the moment, which is the low from Feb. So it's an interesting market, UK wheat, but you know, we haven't seen it being able to hang on to any rallies so far. You want to go short? Where would you go? Where would your stop go? For me, the closest I would have my stop, let's flip it to an hourly. I would probably want to go, I mean, an aggressive stop would be above this Tuesday's high just gone, wouldn't it? At like 188. That would be an aggressive stop. I'd rather have it up here somewhere at 194. It's a really thinly traded market, isn't it? You can see by the hourly candles that it's a bit of a funny old market, isn't it? But yeah, I would, definitely want to stop above there, probably 194. That's what I would do. Why would you trade? I would say though, why not trade the more liquid wheat, the old US wheat? Is what I would say. I mean, it is. I can see though, it is a slightly different looking chart, isn't it? Let's see what happens. But yeah, it still looks weak to me. Thoughts on palladium? Yeah, palladium. I've been looking at that because I'm long platinum. I think palladium is just a bit boring. If we have a look at it, if I could find it on my list, hang on. Palladium. I'd probably buy it in the short term. If you take all this stuff off for a second, you know, it was a great market. I think it was a great market from 2018 into COVID, and I had quite a few trades running there. Brilliant market. Just felt like it went up every week, but it's been a very different market since 2022. I would say the trend is still down. So from a longer term point of view on palladium, I'd be a seller rather than a buyer. But if I was going short now, I'd want my stop at least above the July highs. From a short-term point of view, that trend has been up, and we have seen this 920 level hold on palladium. So maybe it's going to squeeze a bit higher, but I'd rather sell it. And I just think it's a bit boring, is what I think. The big trend is still down for me on palladium, so it doesn't look too exciting for me either way. Jay Powell speaking at Jackson Hole at 3 p.m. UK time. Thanks for that. Richard, is that today then? Is he doing anything to the markets? Oh, yes, he is. There we go. Oh, hang on, there's someone at my door. Don't know who that is. Maybe it's delivery. Yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, that really has got to move on, hasn't it? Hold on a second. I'm just going to dash and see what that is. Talk amongst yourselves. Oh, right, sorry about that. Very unprofessional. Back now. So Powell's speaking now. Clearly that's had an impact. So that has lifted the Nasdaq 100 points and has lifted the S&P about 27, 30 points. So, let's see. Let's see if it hangs on to that and if it does take out the highs from yesterday and see what happens there. But he's clearly, I don't know what he said. Let's have a quick look on Twitter and see if it comes up. Twitter's really changed. I'm sure it's the same for you. That now when I log on to Twitter, I get a load of random rubbish. Whereas in the old days, I used to get onto it straight away, and you'd see something that was relevant. Fed Chair Powell says the time has come for Fed policy to adjust. Not quite sure what that means. Does that mean he's going to cut rates? Anyway, let's see. Let's see how sustainable it is for the rest of today. So a big move there. What else have we got? We did palladium. Possible short on dollar yen. Dollar yen, dollar yen, dollar yen. So that market really is having a right old move, isn't it? Hang on, what impact is it having on other markets then? What's it doing to the dollar? Hang on a second. Let's have a look at that. Oh, yes, that's brilliant for my pound trade anyway. Hold on a second. Yeah, that's put a rocket under the pound. What's it done to oil? Not much to oil. What's it done to T-bonds? It's lifted T-bonds. Brilliant. That's what we like to see. Excellent. So my pound trade's up and T-bonds are up. Okay, let's see how sustainable all of this is as the day goes on. Right, short on dollar yen. Short on dollar yen. Let's have a look at that on the dailies. I mean, for me, I would still prefer to be a buyer of dollar yen rather than a seller. I mean, obviously, we're seeing this crazy move at the moment because of Powell. Let's see how everything settles down. For me, I'd probably like to be a buyer next week if we drift back down a little bit lower with a stop under 140. So yeah, it's been it's been a pretty big move on dollar yen, isn't it? But interesting next week if we drift back towards these new lows. Gold, Kevin mentioned. Let's have a look at that. Yeah, gold's having to move on as well. General Motors. Let's have a look at those. GM. Again, I mean, that's one I had been in. I came out of it. The only question for me is where would my stop go? So it's a tricky one for me. So I would probably like a stop. It's too far away. So for me, on General Motors, I'd be waiting for the breakout to new highs or a dip back down and buy the dip and see what happens. And lumber. Would you buy lumber? I don't know. For me, I mean, it's got a good trend, isn't it? It's still perhaps a little bit in the middle of the range. It was a good market. I haven't looked at this in a long time because there was some great trends like here when it was just falling all the time. I think there's an argument to be a seller or a buyer of lumber. You could take the view in lumber. The trend has been down since March. And this is a retest. Go short. Or if we flip it to the hourlies, the trend has definitely been up since July and buy the dip. So I think it's a tricky one. If I was a buyer of the dip, I'd be stops under 490. But I would probably rather be thinking about going short personally on lumber. So we'll see how that works. Seems to be lumbering along. That's the dad joke of the day. So that's the award for that. Otherwise, we're done, aren't we? We're done. Well, it's going to be an interesting afternoon now, isn't it? Going to be interesting. Let's see how sustainable all of this nonsense is. I've got my Nasdaq trade on, and the Nasdaq needs to get to here, 20,075, for me to move my stop, which is still a long way away. Some of these moves are calming down a little bit now. Let's see what happens. I could really do with oil falling. That would be quite handy. But otherwise, there's a lot to watch next week. You know, despite the excitement of this afternoon, there's a lot to watch. You know, we've got stock markets up where they are. Are we going to see new highs, or are we going to see it run out of steam? That's interesting. Dollar index knocked again today, new lows for the year. But are we going to see sentiment change down here? So lots to watch there. And some of these metals, like gold is the obvious one, has benefited from the dollar weakness. You know, do we see that continue to power out? So plenty to keep an eye on. I'll come back on Friday as usual. Next Friday we'll do a live stream. I'll put out a thing next week about what trades I've got running, do an update on some of these trades, see how they're all doing next week, how that's going along. If you want this stuff every day, you should join the WhatsApp group, you know, so give that a go. The WhatsApp group is, use the code YouTube to get 20% off the first month. Try that out. Otherwise, we'll leave it all there. So good luck with your trading. Let's see where we are this time next week. To find out who I trade with, go there. It could be an interesting finish to the day. If you're in the UK and it's bank holiday, have a good long weekend. And see you all next Friday. All right. Thanks for coming along. See you then.